Okay, this is the 3.1 video continued. We're going to follow off with example 3, evaluating algebraic expressions. Evaluate k plus 10 when k equals 25. So if I have k plus 10, right now I don't know what it equals. There's nothing telling me what k equals. However, when you look at the directions, it does tell me that k equals 25. So all you are doing is taking your k and you're filling in 25. It actually seems really simple. So 25 plus 10 equals 35. So my answer is 35. So when k plus 10, we don't know what it is, we fill in what it tells us. 25 is what k equals. You just plug it in and move on. The next one is evaluate 4 times n when n equals 12. So you write out your problem, 4 times n, and now we know that n equals 12, so we plug in, for n, we put in 12, and then we leave everything else, the same. Let me erase that. Sorry. Okay. And now you just simply solve. 4 times 12 equals 48. And my answer is 48. So again, I have my variable. I know it equals 12, so I just plug it in. Let's try this one. Now we have 24 plus c when c equals 9. I know that c equals 9, so I just break it down and I plug in my 9, and the rest of it stays the same. And so my answer would be 33. And that's how you basically solve one of these problems. If it tells you what you have to fill it in for, just plug it in. Now, obviously, this is going to get a little bit more challenging, but that's what you have to do. Example 4 is evaluate an expression with 2 variables. So this time we have 2 variables in our equation. We have a and b. So a divided by b is what we need to evaluate. When a equals 16 and b equals 2/3. So all I'm doing is I'm going to reset it up just like we did before. So I have a divided by b. What I'm filling a in for is 16 divided by, I'm filling b in for 2/3. And then I'm going to solve it. And now that we're here, you have to remember the rules for dividing fractions. We've got 16 over 1 divided by 2/3, which equals 16 over 1. We leave it, we change it, we flip it. Okay, and now you can do your cross factoring. 2 can go into 16, so 2 can go into itself 1 time. 2 can go into 16 8 times. And we end up with 8 times 3 is 24. 1 times 1 is 1. And we end up with an answer of 24. So again, you have to use what we've learned in the previous chapters, and you have to take that into account for what we're doing now. Now we're dealing with expressions that have variables in them. So if I have a and it equals 16 and b that equals 2/3, I've got to plug those in, and then I need to do the solving part. You might find directions like this where it says evaluate the expression when p equals 24 and q equals 8, and then it just gives you 4 problems with p and q in there. So sort of like this. So you're given 4 different problems here, or expressions, to solve. So basically, you just need to remember what you have to do to fill these in. So if p equals 24, this is going to be 24. Keep my division sign. Q is 8. Go over here. Q is 8 plus 24. Remember, I'm just getting them from up here. P is 24, Q is 8. And you can just put your arrows below if that helps you. P down here is 24 minus Q, which is 8. And then this one over here, our final one, is PQ, which is when you have 2 variables together, it's always multiplication. So I've got P, which equals 24, times Q, which is 8. So these would all have to be solved, and your answers, I'll just post your answers because these are pretty simple ones. So we have 3, 32, 16, and 192. Here's a quick study tip for you. You can write the product of 4 and n in several different ways. So product equals multiplication. So you can write it like this: 4 times n, 4n, or 4 times n with parentheses. And we learned in order of operations that whenever you have a number next to a parenthesis, it's always multiplication. So those are 3 different ways to write out multiplication when it comes to variables. You need to know this. This is very important. Star it so that you understand it. Speaking of order of operations, example 5 is evaluating expressions with 2 operations. So the directions for this one are to evaluate 3x minus 14 when x equals 5. So you need to start by writing everything out. So I've got 3, and then my x I'm going to put in a different color because that's what I'm going to be changing, minus 14. I know that my x equals 5, so that's where I'm going to start. So I'm going to put down a 5 here because that's what I'm plugging in. Now, you have to be careful because I'm not going to I can't just put my 3 down, but I can put my 5 in parentheses like we just learned, minus 14. Or I could put in the little dot. It doesn't matter. However you want to do it, it's up to you. Now I'm going to use order of operations and I'm going to solve. 3 times 5, because multiplication, well, first of all, it's left to right, but multiplication comes before subtraction, which equals 15 minus 14 equals 1. This next one, I have evaluate z squared plus 8 5/10 when z equals 2. So I'm going to start off with my z is what I need to change. I'm not changing anything about squaring it. And I have 8 5/10. Remember what we talked about. Your decimals and your multiplication signs can get a little bit messed up if you don't have good handwriting. Really take your time to write this one out. All right, so I'm going to fill in what I have for z because z equals 2. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to put 2, keep it squared, plus 8 5/10. Order of operations tells me to do exponents first. So 2 to the second power would be 2 times 2, which is 4, plus 8 5/10. So this one, when we're talking about decimals, remember this is from chapter 2, I'm going to line up my decimal places. Whoops. I'm going to line up my decimal places. Let me erase that. I have 8 5/10 plus my 4. Now remember, this is a whole number. So because it's a whole number, it would be like this. I've got to line up my decimal places. 5 plus 0 is 5. Bring down my decimal. 8 plus 4 is 12. So I should get an answer of 12 5/10. But remember, this is what we're working on, is plugging them in. This should already be mastered. And if we're still having complications with stuff like that, you've got to communicate it with me. So maybe work out a couple on your own. This is the try it. So evaluate the expression when y equals 6. All right, so go ahead and write these down, complete them, and then you can jot down what the answers are and how to solve them, but pause before you do. All right, here are the answers worked out. I just want to point out a couple things. If you came over here and you tried to subtract 30 minus 24, and you came up with 6 first, and you did 6 divided by 6, you are going to get 1 and you would get the incorrect answer. Remember, you have to do order of operations, which tells us to divide first. 24 divided by 6 is 4. Then you put down your 30. 30 minus 4 is 26. So that would change your answer drastically if you did it out of order. All right, that concludes our video. And make sure you have all your notes so that you are not giving me a homework pass.